ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, I'm going to be talking about Transformers number 7, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, with art by Jorge Corona and color by Mike Spicer. After the previous issue, the Autobots have won. They have defeated the Decepticons and sent them packing, and in ways that feel like the type of thing you would see at the end of Transformers on Saturday mornings back in the 80s. But what's different with this series versus going back and watching those old episodes of the original 80s cartoon is that in those original episodes, we didn't often see the scars that were left behind by those battles with the Decepticons. And here, we're actually seeing them. Yeah, sure, the Autobots won, they saved the day. However, they are hurting right now. Wheeljack is still without his legs. Ratchet got his legs back, but he is still on the mend. We also know that Spike's friend Carly, she is in a very weird emotional state right now because since the start of the series, she's learned about her father's death at the hands of Starscream, and she wants Starscream dead. And in the previous issue, Cliffjumper did not unalive Starscream when he had the chance. And Carly, while she most certainly was more than willing to pull the trigger, Cliffjumper gave Starscream a chance to escape because Cliffjumper, as I said in the previous video for that issue, he's trying to be better. He's trying not to make this, war out to be more than what it should be. He thinks that it should come to an end and that maybe they can all just live and let live, but clearly that's not going to be the case with Starscream. So yeah, that said, Cliffjumper, he is hating himself right now for not unaliving Starscream for the exact same reasons. He thinks he's made a mistake. And I do find it very comforting that in this issue, Cliffjumper and Jazz are kind of going back and forth with each other. In this conversation, we're seeing what an actual mature adult conversation about waging war against people who are honestly outside of name distinctions, outside of choosing a tribe amongst a singular species of alien people. You're pretty much the same people, and you're going to war with each other over an ideology. And how sometimes if you take a moment to sit back and kind of look at that, you realize just how stupid the war is. And that's what I kind of feel is happening here with Cliffjumper and Jazz. Not saying that they don't think the war is worth fighting, but just the reasonings behind why they're having to do this. And yeah, it's cool. It's something that I wasn't really sure Daniel Warren Johnson was going to tackle in the series, and he has done so. And not just here, he's also done it on a couple of other occasions as well, but this issue I think is probably the most open and straightforward example of it. But getting back to Carly and what's going on with her, because once again, she is wanting revenge against the Decepticons, specifically Starscream. Arcee, one of the very few female Transformers you'll ever run into, at least from the 80s era, Arcee is trying to relate to Carly. And while she is failing spectacularly at it, the reason that she is failing is not because she doesn't understand Carly. The problem is that she actually does. And everything that Carly is going through emotionally, dealing with the loss of her father, wanting to get revenge on Starscream, feeling that the Decepticons are her enemy, and she is willing to risk everything, risk it all to take the Decepticons down once and for all. Arcee gets it perfectly, and we get to see why she feels that way, why she can empathize with Carly in this, is that while maybe not so much directly because of losing a father, but she has lost a lot of her friends and even the people she was closest with, even better than friends most likely. She has witnessed those people all be decimated by the Decepticons. And we actually get an answer as to why a lot of those Generation 2, those Gen 2 Transformers, why a lot of them are not in the present day of this series. In one specific one, I feel is probably one of the, I don't say the most popular one of the Gen 2s, but one that, if you were a fan of Gen 2 Transformers, you would probably recognize his character, and we get to see why that character has not been hanging around as of late. And it's It's all pretty heartbreaking and depressing, if I'm being brutally honest. And if that weren't depressing enough, we also have to remember that Sparky, the father of Spike, is dead. He unalived himself in the previous issue, sacrificing himself by literally running into the center of the Autobot matrix of leadership, and for all intents and purposes, giving up his life to fuel the life force of Optimus Prime. Optimus is trying to come to grips with that because it wasn't a choice that he made. I saw some people in my comments for that previous video saying, oh, Optimus sacrificed him. Optimus couldn't do anything. He was literally laying there almost dead, if not already dead by the time that Sparky did what he did. There was nothing he could do to stop him. I mean, yeah, sure, because some of the other Transformers stopped him? Probably, but I mean, they didn't know what it was he was even trying to do in the first place, so there's really nothing anyone really could have done. I mean, it's very easy to kind of, armchair quarterback that whole thing when you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, but you have to also put yourself in the position of these characters that are not knowing what's going on in the mind of someone who is just as alien to them as they are to him. So you have to kind of get out of that headspace there. But the thing here too is that while Spike is on the mend, Spike is having a rough time compartmentalizing what happened to his father. And well, you can tell Spike doesn't 100% blame Optimus for any of this. You can just tell that he's having to get his head around it. And it just is what it is at that point. He's dealing with this in the most adult way that a kid his age probably could. He is just trying to get through it. He's not mad at anyone. At least he doesn't seem to be, or at least he says that he's not. But the truth is that he's going to be sad. He's going to be down, and that's all he can really do is just grieve. But the interesting thing about this is what's going on with Optimus as a result of Sparky's death. While yes, it gave him Sparky's life force to keep him alive, to fuel the Autobot matrix of leadership and keep that whole thing going, the truth is that Optimus is seeing weird visions that a robot should not be having. And these visions look very much like the birth of Spike, or possibly the brother that was mentioned in previous issues. Either way, Optimus is seeing these visions in ways that are like him seeing through Sparky's eyes through these visions, but also at the same time, not seeing Sparky in the place of Sparky, but Optimus seeing himself in place of Sparky. And it's interesting to note, but we don't really know where that's going to go, but I think it's safe to say that while Sparky may be gone, I think there is an angle somewhere in there, not to say that he's going to come back, but a way to keep Sparky's memory alive in the midst of everything that happened. Though, I mean, to be fair, he could come back. We have seen weirder stuff happen as of late in this Transformers book. Like, if you would have told me that in a Transformers comic in 2024, we would see a human literally run into the center of the Autobot matrix of leadership and save Optimus Prime's life, I would have laughed at you. And yet here we are. All in all, Optimus is realizing, though, in the wake of the defeat of the Decepticons, not only does he have to try and square the circle of dealing with the aftermath of Sparky sacrificing his own life, he also needs to deal with how they're going to press the fight against the Decepticons. And what I like about this too is that it's not Optimus just sitting back on his hands and saying, okay, well, we defeated the Decepticons today, so now we just move on to the next thing. No, he knows they need to keep the fight on the Decepticons, and if they don't, then it's only going to be their end that gets spelled out by the time it's all said and done. And what he's going to do is he wants to bring back presumably either one or more different Autobots with aerial capabilities. We see this because Wheeljack brings up that they need somebody who can get a bird's eye view on the Decepticons. And while the Autobots, sometimes depending on what you're watching, sometimes they seem to have the ability to fly and other times they do not. But there are very specific Autobots, the aerial bots, they seem to be making a return coming up soon. That would be characters like Silverbolt, Air Raid, Fireflight, Skydive, and Slingshot. And technically speaking, even if none of these characters make the cut, if they do not go with the aerial bots or the G1 versions of those characters, I would not be shocked if we didn't get the return of Jetfire, because Jetfire is a aerial transformer, so that could also be something there. And we know that Jetfire was technically killed off in the first issue, but he could technically be brought back in this one. So it's not to say that this couldn't be the case. When Optimus goes in to look at what he has to work with, just what we see laying around to me seems more indicative of one of the other aerial bots. More specifically, a character like Slingshot or Air Ray. They may not bring back the whole lineup, but I think we would at least get one or two. The other thing to take note of this issue is Soundwave. We actually get to see Soundwave make his play. I wasn't sure if DWJ was going to go with this in this issue, but now it seems that yes, he's 100% going to lean into it. Soundwave is making his play. He is tired of Starscream's leadership, and he is taking the fight to Starscream, even directly challenging him in front of the other Decepticons. And what I find the most interesting about this, just the challenge itself, is how when Starscream tries to back out of it, the other Decepticons co-sign Soundwave, basically saying, yeah, you have to take this challenge. It's either this or you're out, period. They've all seemingly had enough with Starscream and Soundwave more than any of them, and rightfully so. Starscream has pushed Soundwave around, he's talked down to him, he's threatened him, he has even harmed Soundwave's minions. We saw how he treated Ravage, literally kicking him in front of Soundwave, no less. So yeah, Soundwave is not having it, and at the end of it all, I think it's safe to say Soundwave superior, Starscream inferior, and I am here for it. I like the idea of this Soundwave getting an opportunity to step up to the plate, to be the leader of the Decepticons, and maybe hopefully give us that moment that I talked about in the previous video. And if you didn't see it, check it out up here. But I hope we get to see that. I want to see how Soundwave is going to try to be a different leader. It seems like he's still wanting to take the fight to the Autobots, whereas Optimus seems more interested in trying to forge a peace between the Decepticons and the Autobots. Soundwave seems to want to keep the party going, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see where they go with that. Like I said, I don't want them rushing to peace right away, but I don't think that's a thing we have to worry about. And I kind of feel like even if they did, there will be splinter factions that would probably split off, here or there. We also can't forget that Megatron is still out there somewhere. We know that Optimus knows where he is because clearly he has Megatron's arm. But I think it's safe to say Megatron, even if they did, like that, honestly, to me, would be the best time to bring Megatron back, is if we get to a point where Soundwave, as leader of the Decepticons, finally breaks down and says, hey, you know what? Peace. Let's give peace a chance. Let's see what happens. And right when he does it, that's when you bring back Megatron. All in all, it's solid stuff. It is really solid stuff. I actually am even more curious, too, what they're going to do with Skywarp now that he is fused into Teletran 1. I'm curious to know what DWJ is planning with that. If he's, what has he got cooking there? Because clearly Skywarp isn't, quotey fingers dead. He's very much alive, and he's locking them out of Teletran 1. So yeah, whatever's going on here, I'm hoping that maybe we'll see Skywarp make some kind of a crazy play, something that you wouldn't normally associate with him, because Skywarp, by my recollection, is not the smarter of the three jets on the Decepticon side. Thundercracker technically isn't either, but like Skywarp always kind of seemed like the space cadet, or maybe I'm misremembering and that was Thundercracker. But either way, point of the matter is this is still great, and I love what's going on here with the art. Like I talked about this in the previous video, that this is the first issue where Daniel Warren Johnson is not penciling or inking any of this issue, like whatsoever. And I like what Jorge Corona is doing. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. The style is so similar that, I mean, yeah, I can tell just because I read a lot of other comics that Daniel Warren Johnson has, made. I know his art style very well, so you can't sneak it past me. But looking at just the, Transformers themselves, you almost wouldn't notice. It's more obvious when you get to the human characters of the story. That's when you kind of start to see a little bit of the difference. But I like that, Jorge is trying to keep it as close to Daniel Warren Johnson's art as humanly possible. And having Mike Spicer on board for colors just helps that out even more, because it kind of lends to keeping that consistency in terms of the overall look of the comic itself. But that said, yes, Transformers number 7, fantastic. And man, yeah, it just feels really good to say that this comic is still doing great, still knocking it out of the park at issue 7. I could not be happier about this comic right now. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.